This Peugeot is equipped with a feature that we call bum bars, because sometimes bums take the handlebars on their bike and cock them up like the ones on this Peugeot. It's, well, it's a feature. I guess it makes the bike more comfortable, and aesthetically, well, you be the judge. It is another beautiful day here in the city of Newburgh, New York, and I'm on a side street about to take a look at the 4 bikes that I found last Tuesday night. So let's check them out. First up is this Peugeot. This is one of these Peugeots that has the Carbolite 103 frame. I'm not entirely sure what Carbolite 103 is, but I think it has something to do with the type of tubing on the frame. But these are pretty common bikes, and they're pretty cool too. In the front, we have a light that was operated by a generator, but I think the generator is long gone. And the really cool Peugeot head tube decal, and a brake that looks like it's by Weinmann. And I guess that's some pretty good equipment for stopping and illuminating the road and looking good. The brake levers are by Weinmann. They're drilled and they're upside down, which probably makes it difficult to stop, but I'm gonna guess that you don't really need to do any emergency stops when you're going to the package store to get a 6-pack of beer. The seat is by Copper Canyon Cycling. I don't know who that is, but it's just one of these cushy Band-Aid looking seats that's probably really comfortable, even though it's a little bit cocked to the side. The top tube has this great Peugeot logo, and the Peugeot branding follows to the seat tube and to the fork. Now the drivetrain on this bike is a little bit questionable because the pedals and the derailleur and the chain and freewheel are totally rusty. And the rust continues to the reflector bracket and the back rim, which is about as crusty as they come. Since this bike is basically worthless as it is, I'm gonna see if I can convert it to a single speed bike for free, and I'll do a video about that, whether I succeed or fail. And that's the Peugeot 103. Next in the group, or the queue, or the Grupo, is the Saintropez La Sport. This bike has no identifying graphics on the down tube because somebody ground off the paint. But when we flip it around, you can see a really cool Saint-Tropez decal. That's just so nice. And the graphics continue to the other side of the top tube, where we find out that this bike is called the La Sport. And then here on the seat tube, another great ST decal. Right now the handlebars on this bike are in the classic bum bar position, but since there's no bolt in the stem, we can pretty much instantly adjust the bars to whatever we want, like this offset position, which makes it a little bit easier to steer to the left. The brakes are something I've never heard of called Jan Hauer, and they have the classic vintage 10-speed setup of drop brakes and the suicide levers, and they're connected to these grimy little side pulls in the front and in the back, and according to the brake pads, these are Changstar brakes, which are pretty common on bikes like this. The fork is a lugged fork that has had the same abrasion treatment as the frame, so it's got half of the paint missing, which is a pretty cool look. And the tubing is Aerolite tubing. I think there was a bike company called Aerolite, but this is a Saint-Tropez with Aerolite tubing. But just between you and me, the tubing looks pretty normal, so I think that Aerolite decal may be some bullshit. Speaking of decals, according to this decal, the bike came from Perlmutter's Bikes and Mopeds. Imagine a shop now called Bikes and Mopeds. That is so insanely cool. Of Wayne, New Jersey, no less. The pedals on our little Saint-Tropez are traditional rat traps, and the cranks are made out of steel, and well, they're nothing to write home about, but I guess they do the job, or at least did the job, because the bike doesn't have a chain anymore, or wheels. And that is the Saintropez La Sport road bike, which of course is going straight to the scrapyard, but I figured before it goes there, it deserves to be recorded for posterity, so there you go. We've recorded it for posterity. The next bike in our list of 4 bikes from last night is called the Planet X BMX. And one thing this bike is really good at is reflecting the harsh sunlight off of every chrome-plated surface on the bike, but let's see what else it has going for it. I've never heard of a Planet X BMX bike, and I'm gonna guess that this thing was imported from a different country than America. So let's look at the decals. If we look at the down tube decal right by the bottom bracket, it says that this bike was imported by Avatar Sports of Torrance, California. And that doesn't really tell us much, so let's look at the fork, which is a tapered fork, and it's got the Planet X decal on it. The frame has this little gusset like a red line, and the welds look okay, but they look like they're probably machine done, so not a hand-built frame, and pretty much the same welds on the fork crown. The brake lever is on the left, and it's a rear brake, which to me means it came from a foreign country and was not necessarily a US spec bike. The grips are imitation Amy tries, and that's something I've never seen before. I've seen a lot of imitation mushrooms and so on, but Amy tries are about the cheapest grips you can get, so I don't know why anyone would want to imitate them, but they look okay. The back hub is called a Rotatex, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but I sure haven't. But it looks like a decent hub. It's made of aluminum, it's not steel. The back rim is an HJC 20-inch by 1.5 with probably 36 holes in it. And the back brake is missing, but it looks like it would have been sort of a mountain bike style V-brake, or maybe cantilevers. The pedals are by Wellgo, and they would be at home on a mountain bike or a BMX bike, so they're okay. Cranks are one piece. The sprocket and rear sprocket are probably 44/16, so that's what, 1990s maybe? The handlebars are just typical two-piece BMX race handlebars, and the seat post is a quick adjust with just seat rails. The seat is missing, but it looks like it was probably a lightweight race seat. And the tires are V rubber, and it says for BMX, but the tread is sort of mountain bikey, so it looks like maybe they didn't put a lot of thought into designing these specifically for BMX. So your guess is as good as mine on the Planet X BMX. It looks like it was kind of a low to mid-level complete race bike that was sold probably somewhere other than the United States, and some family brought it in from their country. But all it needs is brakes and a brake cable and a seat, and it should be good to go. And it's a pretty decent bike. That's the Planet X BMX bike. The last bike on our list, actually the first one I found last night, is the Silk Porta Cycle folding bike. And I'm gonna do a detailed video about this later, but I'll do a little overview of it right now. The Silk Porta Cycle is based around this sort of monocoque frame, and it has twin handlebars, which can be lowered individually to fold up the bike, and I'll show how to do that in the upcoming video about this bike. The handlebars are held tight by this big wing nut, and at the base of the handlebars they have these sort of little tail bullets, like on a vintage car from the 50s. The crankset on the right is foldable, so you can fold the bike up, and in the middle of the frame there's this really sort of awkward, cumbersome latching folding system that's really cool looking, but a little bit hard to use. Up front we've got the Porta Silk Tokyo Katakura head tube badge, which is just brilliant. And out back there's a Nankai number 75 coaster brake hub, which is something that I haven't heard of since BMX Flatland in the 90s. Now, as far as I can tell, this bike is all original, from the silk seat to the little Porta Cycle fenders to the really blocky looking pedals, even the light bracket that mounts on the headset. I'm not too sure about the tires because they do say made in Taiwan. But look at this incredible little Araya 16-inch rim. How old is that? 30, 40 years? And it's pretty obvious that the back tube has been replaced and the back tire is made in Korea. So who knows what the deal is with that. But I'll probably call this a 90% original bike, and when I go to sell it, it's gonna be expensive. I'm not giving this one away cheap because it is so cool. So stay tuned for a much more in-depth video about the Silk Porta Cycle. And until then, that's the 4 bikes I found last night here in the city of Newburgh. Thanks for watching.